In the 1960s, a man could pour himself a drink that today would be pulled from shelves, capped by federal limit, slapped with a poison warning, or flat out illegal to sell. The glass that fueled the field hand, the factory man, and the Saturday night crowd was rarely just flavored water. It carried iron, minerals, hard alcohol, or compounds no agency would approve now. Number 10. Switchel. Before sports drinks existed, the men working the hayfields drank switchel, also called haymaker's punch. It was water cut with cider vinegar, ground ginger, and a heavy pour of molasses or maple syrup, mixed in a jug and lowered into the well to keep cool. The combination was no accident. The molasses delivered potassium and trace minerals, the vinegar settled the stomach, and the ginger kept a man from cramping under the summer sun. For a laborer sweating through a 12-hour day, it was the original electrolyte drink, brewed for pennies in his own kitchen. Nothing ever banned switchel. It simply lost the race to the bottled soft drink and the sugary sports beverage, which were cheaper to grab and heavily advertised. By the time the 1960s ended, the jug in the well had been replaced by a can from the cooler, and a genuinely functional drink had quietly disappeared. Number 9. High quinine tonic water. The tonic in a 1960s gin and tonic was not the faintly bitter mixer sold today. It descended from real medicinal tonic water loaded with quinine, the bark-derived compound that fought malaria and that British and American men drank by the glass as a bitter, bracing tonic believed to sharpen the Constitution. Quinine has a genuine pharmacological kick, and Old Tonic carried far more of it than anything on the shelf now. That ended when the FDA stepped in and capped the quinine content of tonic water at a strict limit of 83 parts per million, citing the drug's real side effects at higher doses. The bitterness was dialed down, the medicinal punch all but removed, and tonic water became a sweet, mild soda with a famous name and almost none of its original character. The drink survived. The medicine in it did not. Number 8. Raw sweet apple cider. Every autumn, a man could buy a jug of sweet cider pressed that week at the local orchard, cloudy, unfiltered, unpasteurized, alive with wild yeast and the full sugar of the apple. Left a few days, it began to turn, and the working man drank it at every stage, from sweet to hard. It was a seasonal staple, raw and untreated, straight from the press. That open jug is effectively gone from the shelf today. After a string of deadly E. coli outbreaks traced to unpasteurized juice in the 1990s, the FDA required that raw cider either be pasteurized or carry a stark warning label telling buyers it could contain bacteria that cause serious illness. Most producers chose to pasteurize, killing the wild cultures along with the pathogens. The fresh, living cider a man once drank by the jugful became a regulated, warning-stamped product its makers had to apologize for. Number 7. Cyclamate diet sodas. By the 1960s, a man watching his weight reached for a diet soda sweetened with cyclamate. Tab, Diet Pepsi, and a wave of others built their early success on it. Cyclamate was cheaper and tasted cleaner than saccharin, without the metallic aftertaste, and it powered the first real diet drink boom in America. Then, in October 1969, the FDA banned cyclamate outright after studies linked it to bladder cancer in laboratory rats. Overnight, every soda built on it had to be reformulated or pulled, and an entire category of drink vanished from the cooler. What is striking in hindsight is that the science was later heavily disputed, and cyclamate remains legal and widely consumed in dozens of other countries to this day. In the United States, it stayed banned. The diet drink a 1960s man held in his hand is, by its original recipe, illegal here more than half a century later. Number 6. Geritol. Few drinks were sold harder to the working man than Geritol, the dark, syrupy iron and B vitamin tonic that promised to cure what its relentless ads called tired blood. A daily dose, the bottle claimed, would restore a man's energy, his vigor, and his strength. And the liquid formula carried around 12% alcohol, which did make a tired man feel better, at least briefly. It sat in millions of American medicine cabinets through the decade. The problem was that the promises were largely false. Most fatigue has nothing to do with iron deficiency. The Federal Trade Commission pursued one of its most famous false advertising cases against Geritol's maker through the 1960s and into the 1970s, forcing changes to the claims and levying heavy fines. The tonic a generation drank to feel powerful turned out to be selling a feeling, backed by booze, that the law eventually made it stop promising. Number 5. Brominated citrus sodas. The bright citrus sodas a 1960s man cracked open on a hot afternoon, the Mountain Dews and their many rivals, held an ingredient most drinkers never knew was there: brominated vegetable oil, or BVO. It was added to keep the citrus flavor evenly suspended so it wouldn't float to the top, and it did its job invisibly for decades. Bromine, though, is the same element used in flame retardants, and as evidence accumulated that it could build up in human tissue, the pressure mounted. In 2024, the FDA finally revoked its authorization for BVO in food, banning it from the American supply entirely. The citrus soda survived, quietly reformulated, but the additive that a generation of men drank in every bottle without a second thought is now, after more than 60 years on the shelf, against the law. Number 4. Raw egg pep drinks. Long before protein powder, a man who wanted to get strong cracked raw eggs into a glass. The prairie oyster, a whole raw egg, with Worcestershire and pepper, was the morning pick-me-up, while the raw egg, malted, and the raw egg eggnog were the muscle builder's secret, packing complete protein and fat into a single fast drink. The early bodybuilders of the era swore by them. Then salmonella changed the rules. As outbreaks tied to raw eggs mounted, federal egg safety regulations, refrigeration mandates, and blunt public health warnings turned the raw egg into something a responsible person was told never to swallow uncooked. Restaurants switched to pasteurized eggs and recipes were rewritten. The cheap, potent raw egg drink that built a generation of lifters was never banned by a single statute, but it was warned and regulated into near extinction. Number 3. Hadacol. No tonic ever promised more than Hadacol. Concocted by a Louisiana politician and sold by the trainload, it was a brown elixir of B vitamins, iron, and a startling 12% alcohol, marketed as a cure for nearly everything and a builder of strength and vitality. At its peak, it outsold almost anything in the South, drunk by working men who felt its kick and credited the vitamins. The kick, of course, was mostly the alcohol. As regulators scrutinized its wild health claims and the company buckled under its own promises, Hadacol was effectively driven off the market right as the decade turned, an early casualty of the tightening rules on what a tonic could legally claim. The drink a generation reached for to feel powerful was, underneath the label, 80 proof of marketing, and the authorities made sure it didn't outlast the men who believed in it. Number 2. Everclear and 190 proof grain alcohol. When a man wanted the strongest legal drink money could buy, he reached for pure grain alcohol. 190 proof, 95% pure, clear as water, and twice as dangerous. It was the backbone of homemade punches, the base for infusions, and the rawest expression of hard drinking in the country. Nothing on a liquor shelf hit harder. That very strength is why it began disappearing. State after state moved to ban or cap high-proof grain alcohol at retail, citing the risk of alcohol poisoning and its popularity in dangerous mixed punches, until it became illegal to buy in a long list of states it had once flowed through freely. The drink that defined the outer limit of what a man could pour is now simply off-limits across much of the map, not for what it contained, but for how much of it lived in every single drop. Number 1. Moonshine. And the drink that forged the hardest men of all is the one that was illegal then and remains illegal now. Moonshine, untaxed corn whiskey, distilled in copper stills, hidden in the hills from Appalachia to the Ozarks, was the working man's spirit. Cheap, fierce, and made by hand outside the reach of the law. It ran clear and unaged, often well over 100 proof, and a generation of rural men were raised on it as casually as city men drank beer. The federal government never tolerated it, because the entire point was that no tax was paid and no inspector ever saw it made. To this day, distilling spirits without a federal permit is a crime, which makes true moonshine one of the last genuinely outlawed drinks in America. The white whiskey that built a certain kind of toughness was never reformulated and never warned about. It was simply, permanently, against the law.